Sure. Just stick to the natural ponytail. We'll stick to the natural ponytail. Okay. Hello and hi everyone. As you can tell from the title, I'm going to be answering your social work questions, the questions that you asked me on Instagram a while ago, actually. I did film this, and if you follow me on Instagram and saw my story, probably last week, I was complaining about my lips being dry, so I wasn't going to post it. So I actually did not post the video because my lips were dry, but today I am prepared. Nice. And before we start, I want to show you guys this really cute skirt that I made yesterday at Ankara. But yeah, without further ado, let me get into this video because it's well overdue. Right, so I've got quite a few questions. A lot of them were really, really good. So I think it'd be beneficial for everyone to know. Again, this video I think is targeted mostly to newly qualified, those who are considering going into social work, and those who are in the middle of university. The first question I got is, how do you manage your social life with social work? How do I manage, sis? It's really, really hard to manage, if I'm being very honest. But what I would say you could do as a tip is to get a hobby, make sure you know what works for you in terms of zoning out, relaxing, tuning out work and just focusing on that. So if you've got those things, it might be, let's say, going to the gym or, I don't know, swimming, whatever it is, find that thing that relaxes you and make sure you set specific time for it so you can actually switch off work, because it's so easy to get sucked into work because it is very time consuming and very stressful and a lot of workload. How do I manage it? I mean, for me personally, I've been a social worker. This is probably going to be another question, but I've been a social worker for 4 years now. And the first 3 of them, I was doing child protection, child in need, looked after children, which was super, super, super hectic. And now I've moved into a different department, which isn't as hectic. Still challenging in its own different ways, but not as manic as what I was in before. So I would say that has been the little bit of leeway that I've had. What are my long-term goals in social work? Honestly speaking, I don't know, but if I had long-term goals, like if I had specific long-term goals, I don't think I would even share them anyway. I'm quite fluid and just open to wherever God takes me, kind of thing. Especially because, I'm quite creative, so I don't really know where I'm going to end. But yeah, even if I did, I probably wouldn't say. But I don't think it's managerial. I don't think I want to be a manager. But who knows? Because I also said I didn't want to be a social worker. When I first started doing social work, or by second year, I decided I'm not doing this job. I do not like it. I hate it. It's not what I thought it was going to be. But here I am 4 years later, still in the profession. Next question, someone said, any recommendation, books or tips to prepare to study for social work? What will probably make it easier, the last time I had the books around, but I don't have them with me right now. So what I will do is I will put together a book list and put it in a description box below so you can see. In terms of preparing for social work, you can also read serious case reviews, talk about deaths that have taken place. But reading these tragic events helps you to learn from others' mistakes and see what's positive, see what didn't work. So I would also suggest that reading articles from community care and speaking to social workers. I think that is the best thing to do. Is if you know any social workers, actually speak to them to see what day-to-day looks like, because that's the part that I was missing when I was doing my research. My research was very Google based. What do social workers do? And Google doesn't really give you the answers that you think you need. So that would be my tip. All right, the next question is, have you got a master's in social work? And if not, do you think it's needed? Now, let me explain this about social work. Social work is very different from any other degree. Not all, but the main degrees. Let me give you an example: business studies. If you were to study business studies, you could then go on and do a master's in business studies. It will put you at a higher advantage, whereas social work is very different. If you have studied post undergrad social work, which is a 3-year course, you are fully equipped to go in as a social worker, a newly qualified social worker. There is no need to do a master's. The master's is not aimed for people with a social work degree. The master's is for people who have another degree, maybe health and social care or psychology or youth studies or child studies. You know, there's similar but not so similar degrees. You will then, even law, for example, you will then need to do a social work master's in order to get into the field. You cannot get into the social work field without the degree or that qualification to come through. So that's what the master's is. So essentially the social work master's is like a course, it's like a conversion course, and that's why it's 2 years, because you still have to go through the placement and training, which is a condensed version of the first placement, obviously acknowledging that you've got a previous degree already, so you have got the skills to write and to do exams and stuff like that, but it's preparing you for social work. So once you have done that master's, you will still be a newly qualified social worker. The master's doesn't put you at an advantage to then become a manager, or you're then at a higher pay scale. No, you are newly qualified because you don't know what you're doing, and that's just how it is. So with social work, the field and the job, it's not something that you get qualifications for and that you can jump certain places. No, you have to start from the ground up, because everything is through experience. You will not be able to handle certain situations and handle things without experience. Like literally everything is experience. So if you haven't, for this particular person asking, they're saying, do they need it? So if you've got a degree in something else, and you wanted to do social work, then yes, you will need to go and do a master's in social work. But if you haven't got any degrees and you're considering social work, just go for the undergrad, and that will be enough. The next question is it easy to progress in social work? I wouldn't say it's easy, but I wouldn't say it's hard. That question is probably individualistic to everyone, depending on what local authority you're in, depending on the management, where you work, depending on so many different things. Being a social worker, being a senior maybe, and then being a manager. If that's the hierarchy you're talking about, then I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy, but I don't know what to say. I'm not going to lie. That's a hard question. Bottom line is experience. You have the evidence that you are experienced enough. And once you go into the field, as you start doing things, you will quickly recognize yourself as to whether you want to progress in that direction or whether you want to move into a different direction. Because there's so many sectors, there's so many departments, you can then choose, actually, I don't want to be in child protection. I want to be in fostering. If you are newly qualified and you decide that you don't want to do child protection, you want to do fostering, of course, you're not going to move over to fostering after 2 years of being in child protection and think you're going to necessarily be a manager in fostering because you don't have the experience in fostering. Does that make sense? So it really is a personal journey question. I'm not going to say yes or no. What are your highlights and obstacles of being a social worker? That question could really be a whole video in itself. I would like to call obstacles challenges instead, because obstacles, I prefer the word challenges. So the highlights of social work is when a family that I'm working with appreciates what I'm doing, because I feel like with social work, we're kind of intruders. No one's asked us to be there. Nobody has, most of the time, majority of the time, they don't want us there. Like we're not very much liked. And that's not in all cases. You could have 30 people, 25 people in your caseload, right? Or 25 children in your caseload. Obviously, not all of them are going to hate you, but it's going to be certain decisions and certain things you're going to say that's going to possibly cause dispute. It's going to cause them to dislike you because they're not happy. And remember, we're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with real people, we're going into their homes. Essentially, what we are doing is trying to equip them with the tools to make the situation better, make home life better for that young person. But you can imagine that people are going to dislike that because we are tampering with the status quo. We are tampering with what they know life is to be. So if we're saying things need to be done in this way, and they're like, well, in my family, we've done things like this. So who do you think you are coming and telling me X, Y, and Z? So you can see there can easily be a lot of animosity, especially where we're in a position where we're thinking, actually, we're very much concerned. We want to take this to court because, this severe neglect or abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, all these things. So with all of that being said, it does get very, very challenging. But what is a positive for me and a highlight is when the parents and the children find the work that I'm doing with them beneficial. When professionals work together, oh my gosh, that is a highlight. I almost forgot. Because we work as a multi-agency, which means basically all the professionals, I'm talking police, schools, GP, early help, all professions you can think of, even nurse, that depends on if the health visitor, midwife, all these people are connected. We're all working together. They're sharing information with me. And a lot of the times their point of contact is myself. As the social worker, bringing me all this juicy information to add to my assessment. I love it when we all work together and when we're all on the same page. Because when we're not, it is hell. It is so difficult when the professionals are like against you, and it makes us look so bad because the parents already against us. So, I mean, if you're already in the field, you understand what I'm saying. If you're not in the field, I don't want what I'm saying to discourage you, but these are the realities of some of the challenges. But it is a positive when we can all work together. Honestly, it's a breeze. And the obstacles, like I said, again, if we're not working together cohesively, that is a problem, number one. Number two, when parents get offensive, defensive, rude, racist, all the ist words. Yes, I've experienced loads of those different things, which I understand, not that is appropriate and not that is acceptable, but resilience has taught me how to manage these things, and patience and great communication skills. 100% necessary. It's probably like the number one skill that I think is so important in social work, because on a normal day, if someone called me certain things, right, how I would respond, oh, ciao. But within this field, it's taught me a lot, and it's taught me to be patient, to be more understanding, not to say it's okay, but to correct in a professional way without escalating the situation, and without, and not escalating myself, if that makes sense. So being aware of my own emotions, and how that can affect the situation as well. I would say that's one of the challenges in social work. That is a skill that you would build up yourself, especially if you're somebody you can consider yourself as, easily angered, hot-headed, that kind of thing. You're going to have to work on that, which comes with practice and comes with training, etc. But those are definitely the challenges. Another challenge is the workload. The workload is a massive daily challenge, just always feeling like you're never done, always feeling like, especially when I was in child protection, always feeling like there's water up to about here. You're just about breathing, and that's it. The moment you get certain things, let me put this down. The moment you get certain things done, it's like more. That is a challenge. That is a massive challenge. Where would you advise to apply for social work jobs? You can check on Indeed, Google. It's the same as how you would search for other jobs. You just go on Google or Indeed and those type of websites who can keep you. You could probably put in what you're looking for, and they'd keep alerting you via email to say, we've got this job available, we've got that job available. You could also, I mean, if your agency, your agents would find you a job. How long would you advise to work permanent once qualified, becoming a locum social worker? This is for those of you who don't understand. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory around what does that mean, permanent, agency, etc. Because I know some of you are not in the field at all. Being a permanent staff, it means you're employed by the local authority, so you're employed by a borough like Southwark Council, Lambeth Council. Every council has social workers assigned to them. So Lewisham Council, and these are all London or Walthamstow or, I don't know any East London ones, but yeah. So you would work for that local authority and as a permanent worker, and you will get the perks of being a permanent worker, which is sick pay, annual leave, and still get paid if you had annual leaves. Let's say you're entitled to about 22 days or 25 days, you will still get paid when you take those days off. Or if you're sick, you'll still get paid. Maternity leave, all these perks come with being a permanent social worker. Being a locum social worker, which is agency, you are not employed by the local authority. The agency will set you up with the local authority, or it might be you work with a private, fostering agency or whatever it is, but you're not going to get paid when you're off sick. You're not going to get all the money that any money if you were to book any annual leave. So there are pros and cons of that, which isn't the question. The question is, how long should you stay being permanent? But I would say, because weighing up the pros and the cons is, again, another individualistic thing for yourself to weigh up, depending on your financial situation, depending on what you're trying to aim, what you're trying to aim for, what are your goals, who are you in responsibility of? Because with being a locum, ideally the local authority, whatever council it is that you work for, ideally they would want to have permanent workers and not have locum social workers, because it costs more. Locum social workers do get paid more, but which means it costs the local authority more money to have you, but ideally they'd rather have someone permanent, which means that if a permanent person comes along, they can tell you to leave. So with local, stability is not guaranteed with being a locum social worker. So you need to be willing to possibly not be in that job for a long time and have to just take the next thing that your agency suggests to you, which may not be in the area that you want it to be. It may be really far away from home, traveling. All these things come to play when it comes to whether you should do locum or not. But if you were to consider locum, I would say minimum of 3 years. I mean, locums or agencies ask for minimum of 2 years a lot of the time. But I think in order to be more confident and robust in your practice, I think 3 years is a good enough time to go locum, personally, I would say. But you can go into being an agency social worker / locum after 2 years of being newly qualified, essentially. And when we say 2 years, I'm talking, so you study for 3 years, you've done your ASYE year, which is your newly qualified protected year, which, do I need to explain that? No, let me not explain it yet. So you've got your ASYE year, and then you've got your second year. After the second year, you can then apply for being a locum. But the reason why I say do 3 years, because one of those years that you did, you were protected the whole year. You were protected as in, because you were newly qualified, they ensured that you had a lower caseload, you were still being assessed, you were still having observations, you still had a practice educator, you had a portfolio to put together. It was almost like an extension of uni, and the ASYE basically is almost like an extension of uni. You can pass or fail, even though you're working and you're being paid. It is a program for newly qualified social workers. So imagine you've done that for 1 year, and then you've done the second year, you go into locum. It's a bit fresh in my opinion. So I would say do that ASYE year, and then do 2 years after that, and then on the third year, you can go agency. But it's up to you and how confident you feel and how much experience you've been exposed to.